The night ledger. I used to keep ledgers for a living, columns of neat numbers, small truths stacked until a pattern appears and a story you didn't want tells itself. In audit, we call it reconciliation. You make what you said match what actually happened. In marriage, reconciliation is supposed to mean something else. I know both languages now. My name is Eliza, and the last year I had with my husband began with a bouquet of peonies that bloomed too late and ended with a notebook full of passwords, room numbers, and all the tiny missing coins that fell out of us when we shook. We met in the easy years. No rug pulls, no red flags, only early mornings in coffee shops where Liam revised pitch decks and I underlined verbs in annual reports the way other people annotate poetry. He said I made spreadsheets sexy. I said he made ambition look wearable. We married on a windy rooftop and promised to surprise each other. It turned out we kept the promise, just not the way we meant. The first time I suspected anything, the house had a temperature I didn't set. Liam had installed a smart thermostat because he believed in optimizing comfort. It keeps a log, time stamps, occupancy predictions, even a cheerful chart of favorite settings. On a Tuesday when he was supposed to be in Phoenix, the thermostat recorded a heat spike late at night. The system noted activity detected in primary bedroom. Perhaps a draft had flirted with a sensor. Perhaps the cat was doing ballet. Perhaps I already knew. 2 days later, a charge hit our joint card for a boutique hotel I knew only because of its lobby bar. Agave, warm wood, armchairs that turned strangers into conspirators. Liam had taken me there once to celebrate a promotion. That night we'd sat side by side, our knees touching, whispering like people who had secrets they would eventually tell. "I'm hosting clients," he texted when I asked how the conference was going. The message wore the plain clothes of truth, and I would have believed it if the hotel name hadn't pinned me like a butterfly to cork. I finished my audit that quarter and told myself a story in which my marriage was not a variable expense. I told myself the thermostat needed recalibration. I told myself the card was used to hold a conference room. I told myself a thing accountants rarely believe, that coincidence loves you. Liam came home with salt on his hair and a key card in his wallet, which could have been anything except it was. When we made dinner, our hands bumped at the cutting board and I felt the old electricity between us, the thunder you hear in your bones when a storm is far away but still heading toward your house. He kissed me behind the ear the way he used to when we were new, and my skin opened like a window. I turned the focus to what I could count. After dinner, I stood at the sink with the water too hot and the radio turned low. He came up behind me, slid his palms under the hem of my shirt and murmured, "I missed you." His mouth found the base of my neck. The kiss was warm and familiar. It also felt like an apology delivered in a language without nouns. I turned to face him and said yes the way a body says yes after months of saying maybe. We kept the lights soft. We moved like people who know where the floor will be. I remember the taste of lime on his tongue, and the way he said my name when he forgot there was anyone else in the world. Desire is a compass. It isn't always a map. At midnight he fell asleep with his arm thrown across my waist like a claim. I lay awake and watched the thermostat display slip back into its favorite temperature, wondering who had taught it that heat meant happiness. I didn't open his phone. I didn't need to. I opened the part of my brain that hoards crumbs and I began to bake. Audit is patient. You gather evidence until the truth is bored of hiding. A rideshare receipt in a folder Liam forgot to close on his laptop. A second phone charger in his briefcase. A cash withdrawal from an ATM near the river on a Sunday morning when he was running. A rogue perfume in the car, expensive and unsure of its right to be there. The pattern ripened like fruit you try to ignore. It sweetened the air until pretending not to notice became its own kind of lie. The person I became surprised me, cool-eyed, methodical, generous about the possibility of a benign interpretation until the benign ones ran out. I kept a notebook, small and black, because paper is harder to hack than a heart. I labeled it the night ledger and wrote down everything at dusk when the house was quiet and my belief in coincidence had gone to bed. I told no one, not my sister, who would have organized a sting operation with cameras hidden in cacti, not my mother, who would have told me to pray for courage, not my friend Ava, who would have bought me a train ticket and a biohazard bag. Secrecy builds its own room inside you. I wallpapered mine with the softest lies I could find so I wouldn't bruise my hands when I reached out in the dark. On a rain-bent Thursday, I met someone whose hand smelled like cedar. Arden, a luthier, a maker of violins and cellos, a person who makes Wood remember how to sing. I had ordered a custom box for my father's old sheet music, and the shop had the kind of quiet that makes you think you should whisper even if you're alone. Arden wore a denim apron and a pencil behind one ear. Their voice was low enough to be a place to sit. Maple or walnut? They asked, showing me two sample boards. The maple glowed like a tea-stained photograph. The walnut ran dark as a secret. I ran my fingertip along the walnut's grain, felt the soft resistance, and said, "I don't want it to be pretty. I want it to be right." Arden smiled, not flirting, just pleased. "Then we'll do this together," they said. I went back to the shop to check stain options and to watch Arden's hands. They used hand planes and tiny chisels. They coaxed curls of wood into the shape of sound. They paused when the grain told them to. We talked about patience, truth, and the relief of getting measurements exactly right. When they looked up from a corner they'd been shaping and caught me watching, something in my chest did an old thing I hadn't felt since before we learned to earn affection with competence. I would like to tell you that nothing happened. It would be easy and for a while accurate. We were careful. We did not stand too close. We did not ask how each other slept. We did not kiss in back rooms that smelled like varnish and overflowing pasts. We only slid toward the edge of a sentence and let our breath finish it. We only let our knuckles touch when we examined a seam. A contact so small it could be classified as accident, except that we both knew the difference between accident and intention. Meanwhile, the ledger kept its appointments. A conference that ended a day later than scheduled. A sulkiness that arrived on his clothes like smoke. A new wine he did not know he liked until someone else poured it for him. I could have confronted him then, but confrontations, I knew from work, often create shapeshifters. You show someone a discrepancy, they show you a new story. Evidence is a compression tactic. It squeezes fantasy until numbers fall out. I wanted the numbers. The day the hotel called to confirm Liam's anniversary reservation was the day the ledger turned into an instrument. "Ms. Hart," the concierge said, "we have you down for a river view and late checkout. Will you be needing a second key prepared in your name?" Her voice wore powdered confidence. She had no idea she had walked into a story that would bite. "Yes," I said. "Put the second key under the name Arden Vale." I don't know why I said it. Maybe I wanted to see what it felt like to say our name out loud somewhere designed for secrets. Maybe I wanted to fold universes together and see which one held. Maybe I wanted to be someone who put herself into the narrative with ink instead of pencil. I did not invite Arden to the hotel. I invited myself to the kind of clarity you find only when you stop threatening to leave and actually walk to the door. My revenge, such as it was, did not involve screaming lobbies or broken glasses or triumphant social posts. I once watched a CFO destroy a bully by presenting a single, perfect spreadsheet in a room so quiet you could hear ambition perspire. I wanted that kind of ending. Elegant, inevitable, clean. I booked the suite next to Liam's. I checked in with a suitcase that contained a red silk dress, the notebook, and 3 fountain pens that never blot. I poured a drink I didn't finish. I wrote a letter the way you write an audit memo: findings, support, conclusion. When I finished, I read it aloud to the empty room, because sometimes you need to hear the ceiling be brave with you. At 7, I knocked on his door. He opened in a white shirt with sleeves he hadn't rolled up yet. He looked good in a way that made me sad, precise, pressed, the kind of handsome that convinces you rules are suggestions. He smiled like a man about to be forgiven without asking for it. "Happy almost anniversary," he said. I walked past him into the room and placed the letter on the table. "Consider this a meeting with your auditor," I said. "We'll begin with the ledger." He tried to make it a game. He laughed, then hugged me, then poured me wine even though I hadn't asked for any. He stared at the envelope like it contained a surprise he could charm his way around. "Eliza, what is this?" he asked, in the tone you use with a child holding matches and a grudge. "It's everything," I said. He didn't open it. Some people only read when there's applause, so I read to him. I listed dates. I listed room numbers. I described the perfume and the thermostat and the time you told me you were tired but your heart rate begged to differ. I told him about the ride shares and the ATM withdrawals and the lobby bar where a bartender remembered your laugh. He listened as if to a podcast about someone else. When I confirmed the reservations he had made for our special night, he finally sat. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "An accurate statement," I said, "and a signature." He looked at the letter, at the red dress, at my mouth. He leaned back the way men do when they are tired of holding their posture. "Her name is Vera," he said. "We met at a dinner I didn't want to go to. We kept meeting. I didn't plan it. I didn't plan any of this." "Your lack of planning," I said, "is not an alibi." He closed his eyes. "I thought you might be happier if someone else took the pressure off." It was such a small sentence for such a large stupidity that I almost laughed. "You thought you were outsourcing me," I said, and he winced, which meant yes. "Why didn't you ask me what I needed?" I asked. He looked at the floor. "I didn't want to know." "That," I said, "is the accurate statement." I slid the letter across the table with a pen. "Sign that you've read and understood and then go," I said. "The room is paid for. The wine is yours. Your anniversary gift to yourself is over." He signed. He left. He did not slam the door. People think endings should be loud. I have learned that the quiet ones shake you longer. I did not cry. I poured the wine into the sink like a libation to a deity who, if she exists, has a wicked sense of humor. I texted Ava one sentence: "Tomorrow I need a lawyer." Then I walked next door to the room with my name on the reservation and opened the balcony to the river's steely gossip. I did not invite Arden to that room. I called them. "I'm not asking you to rescue me," I said when they picked up. "I'm asking if you can talk while I sit on a balcony and watch boats that think they're going somewhere." They breathed in. "I can do that," they said, and we did. We talked about nothing and everything: glue viscosity, the lifespan of strings, the way water keeps score. They did not ask questions I couldn't answer. They did not offer advice I hadn't requested. They did not tell me who to be next. Before we hung up, they said, "Bring your body home. The rest will follow." My body went home. It slept. It woke early and made coffee that tasted like a promise not to panic. It called a lawyer. It called my sister. It called my mother. It told the truth to people who would hold it kindly. It called Arden and asked if I could come by to see how the walnut had finished. The box was perfect, satin smooth, the grain a slow river under your hand. Arden lifted the lid and set it gently into my palms. "I want you to know," they said quietly, "that I will walk at your pace. If that pace is none, I can do none. If that pace is slow, I am fluent in slow." I put the box down and leaned against the workbench. "Will you kiss me like a person who believes in evidence?" I asked, and they stepped in, gentle, precise, offering their mouth like an instrument that had been tuned but not played in haste. The kiss had patience and warmth and the exact pressure that tells a body it can stop bracing. Their hand found the back of my neck and rested there, a simple claim with no paperwork attached. When we parted, the shop's quiet held us like a well-built room. There is a way to write about desire that makes it sound like fireworks. Mine felt more like the dimmer switch finally sliding to the right setting. The next time we met, we ate late, bread torn with hands, olives with pits we rolled between our fingers like difficult decisions. We stood in the kitchen, not touching and then touching everywhere it mattered. Arden traced my collarbone with the back of a finger, and I felt the sensation ring all the way to my ankles. They kissed the soft inside of my wrist, the place that counts time, and I understood why some music starts low and only later remembers to crescendo. We did not hurry to undress. There is pleasure in fabric, in the whisper of a shirt lifted, in the pause where breath learns a new key. There is a luxury in a lover who asks, "Here," like a cartographer checking coordinates. We found a tempo that belonged to us. The body has more words for consent than the mouth. We used all of them. If you want me to say, I never faltered, I can't. There were nights when I stood in the hallway outside the old bedroom and touched the doorframe as if I could bless away the past. There were mornings when I pressed my palm to my own belly and felt a sorrow that had no plot, just weather. I missed the version of Liam that had held my coat while I tied my shoes. I missed the me who had believed our worst problem would be where to go for dinner when we were too tired to be charming. Divorce, when you do it with care, is an act of architecture. You take down walls without bringing down the roof. Our lawyer was a woman with eyes like blueprints. She guided us through property and accounts and the weird intimacy of separating the pantry. On the last day, she slid the final document across the table and said, "The next house you build will be better because you will install the windows you forgot last time." Liam cried. "I did too." He said, "I loved you the whole time, you know," and I said, "I believe you, that wasn't the problem." He hugged me without asking. I let him. Somebody somewhere turned down a thermostat. Arden and I did not rush to name ourselves. We didn't need to. We cooked together, hands at the same cutting board, knives announcing their presence and then doing their work. They taught me to hold the violin's ribcage and feel it hum under my palm like a cat being useful. I taught them to salt pasta water until it tasted like the sea we wished we lived near. We bought a rug that didn't match anything because it matched us. They pressed their mouth to the base of my throat when they walked behind me, the most unassuming of territories claimed with a kiss. We argued about paint colors without using it as a rehearsal for leaving. We learned to apologize out loud and immediately. There is an erotic charge to "you're right" when it isn't a surrender but a gift. I saw Vera once, months later, at the lobby of the hotel that had hosted our finale. She was a woman with small, expensive jewelry and a glance that measured the room's exit routes. She recognized me because women know what women know. She approached with the half-smile of someone who is tired of pretending to be accidentally elegant. "I didn't know," she said. "You did," I said, not cruel, just accurate. "Then you did not know what to do with what you knew." She nodded. "I am leaving him," she said, as if it were a compliment she wanted me to accept. I didn't. I wished her a good night and walked out into air that didn't belong to anyone. On our first spring together, Arden and I took the train north to a town that smells like rain and bookstores. We rented a cottage that had a stove older than my ability to compromise and a porch that looked like the future. We read. We made love with the window open and let the wind sign our names. We lay on the floor and listened to a record that sounded like someone forgiving you without needing to discuss it first. At dusk, we walked the streets and waved to the cat in the second-floor window because he had decided we would. When it rained, we napped like debutantes. On the last night, a storm came in from the lake, the kind that teaches trees how to bow. We stood on the porch and counted, the way you do when you're young and want to time lightning and thunder even though you've learned to let them be married in peace. Arden slid an arm around my waist and pulled me against them. "What do you want now?" they asked. That used to be a terrifying question. It felt like a trap door. If I said the wrong thing, I would fall. Now it felt like a doorway that had been there all along, one we had finally stopped painting shut. "I want to remember," I said, "and then I want to forget," which meant I want to honor the life I had without letting it keep me from the life I can have. We went inside and dried our hair with the ugly towels that come with good rentals. We kissed, slow as a ledger balancing. We didn't need music. The rain had brought its own. Back home, the box Arden built sits on my desk. I keep the ledger inside it, along with a Polaroid of the rooftop where we married and a grocery list from before we learned to love by inventory. I open it sometimes and run my fingers over the walnut, over the seam where truth was sanded and sealed. It is beautiful. It is right. If you are reading this because your thermostat learned a language you did not teach it, or because a receipt arrived like a subpoena to your sense of safety, know this. You can build a life without omitting yourself from the balance sheet. You can love again without laundering your needs. You can make desire a witness instead of a verdict. When the night ledger comes for you, and it will because every love owes a tax to reality, record what happened. Not to punish, to reconcile. Then close the book and put it in a box that fits in your hands. Step into your kitchen. Salt the water until it tastes like a place you have the right to live. Kiss the person who believes you. If you are alone, kiss your own wrist and mean it. As I write this, the house holds the day like a bowl holds light. The thermostat hums at a temperature I chose. The radio plays a song that doesn't belong to anyone. In the other room, Arden is bending a thin strip of maple over a hot iron, coaxing it into the curve a violin requires. The room smells like wood and anticipation. When I go in there, they will look up and smile the smile they reserve for truth. They will wipe their hands on the apron, cross the room, and press their forehead to mine as if we are reading the same sheet of music. Then, in a voice low enough to be a place to sit, they will ask, "Ready to be hungry?" And I will say yes, the way a body says yes when the math finally adds up and the door is no longer locked from the outside.